Look behind you.
Hey, what's up, you guys, and welcome back to the Creepy and Paranormal Podcast. I hope that you guys are all keeping well and staying safe during these interesting times that we are going through at the moment. There is just so much happening. It's hard to stay on top of everything, but yeah, I hope you guys are doing super well. Today's podcast is going to be a freaking awesome one. We are going to be diving into the case of John Wayne Gacy, who is often called the Killer Clown. And he was probably one of the worst serial killers in US history, and he murdered about 33 young male victims. So yeah, really looking forward to that one, guys. But let's get straight into it. I mean, let's start the show off. So before we get into old John Wayne Gacy, I came across this news article the other day on Lad Bible, which is about Louis Davidson, who's also better known as D. What he did is he went to go and visit this abandoned building in Scotland about 2 weeks ago. And he's 26 years old. And so, he's from a town in Cumbria called Workington. And he was just out there filming content for his YouTube channel and claims he was completely alone in this asylum, by the way, which has been abandoned since the 80s. And he said he heard someone screaming. Now, I've played the video and I've looped it a couple of times and I listened, and it almost does sound like a scream, but I'm not too sure exactly if it is that or if it is something being scraped in the building, which is still pretty creepy considering he was alone there. And when he was speaking about the moment and what he thinks it was, he said that I 100% believe it was an ex-patient screaming for help, or that their spirit is trapped there in the abandoned building. He also went on to add that he was completely alone, and when I was there was nobody else inside the building, so I had the full asylum to myself, and I was there for about 2 hours. I never noticed the scream until I was editing the video back, ready to be uploaded, and was completely horrified that it was so loud, and it was clear that I never heard it in real time. Now that's really creepy. I mean, like, picture yourself in this position. If you had heard that scream live right there and then, you probably would have got the hell out of there so freaking fast. Or if you really like a bit of creepy stuff, you probably would have stayed to try and antagonize the spirits a bit more. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the clip here for you. And it's not very clear. It's right near the end of the clip. That's where you hear the scream kind of a sound. So you can make up your mind for it. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to link the website where I've got this information from, and you can go and watch the video for yourself as well. Okay, let's get into this son of a bitch, John Wayne Gacy. So who was he? Well, he was an American serial killer as well as a rapist. And he took the lives of at least 33 young males in Cook County, Illinois. Now, that's of what we know, right? And most of those people, he buried them under his house, like a freaking sicko. And there were also other bodies that were recovered from a nearby river, which was the Des Plaines River. Now, sometimes he was also known as the Killer Clown for his habit of dressing in a clown costume and makeup. And, Gacy had an abusive childhood and struggled with his homosexuality. And after being convicted of sexual assault in 1968, Gacy's murders were discovered. How freaking terrifying must that be to be, confronted, never mind killed, confronted by someone dressed up in the clown. Now, anyone that knows me knows that my biggest fear is clowns. I don't know what it is. I probably attribute it to the original Stephen King It movie. I can just see Pennywise's face, and that freaking creeps me out. And till this day, I hate clowns. Never liked them, never will. So let's talk a little bit about Gacy's early life. He was born in March 17, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. He was the son of Danish as well as Polish parents, and he grew up with his siblings as well as his father, who was an alcoholic. Now, the father apparently would beat the children with a razor strap if they were perceived to have been misbehaved. And his father also physically assaulted Gacy's mother as well. Not a good upbringing to be brought up with. And I think a lot of these serial killers, if you go and look at their upbringings, they probably were molested and tortured, and all of this attributes to who they become. Now, Gacy's sister Karen would later say that the siblings learned to toughen up against the beatings and that Gacy would not even cry. Now, he probably just completely removed himself from the situation. I've heard of many cases of women who've been raped and abused that they just mentally remove themselves from the situation. So while it's actually happening, they just completely zone out and go to another place. Now, Gacy also suffered further alienation while he was at school and was unable to play with other children due to his congenital heart condition. Did I say that right? Congenital heart condition. And he was often looked upon by his father as another failing. Now, he later realized he was attracted to men and experienced great turmoil over his sexuality. And I think especially back then, it was not very common for men to be openly gay. And I think it was a complete big problem and there was a big stigma attached to it. So that probably messed him up as well. And I think people were just so ignorant to the whole gay lesbian thing back in the like 70s, 80s, and not even 90s, I suppose the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it was completely frowned upon. So now, growing up, Gacy then went on to work as a fast food chain manager during the 60s and became a self-made building contractor, as well as a Democratic precinct captain in the Chicago suburbs in the 1970s. Now, he was pretty much well liked in his community, and Gacy organized a cultural gathering. In fact, he did a couple of cultural gatherings, as well as being active in a political organization and the JC Civic Group. He was married as well and then divorced twice and had 2 biological children in addition to 2 step-daughters. Now, let's talk about Gacy being a clown. Now, he was a member of the Chicago area Jolly Joker Clown Club and frequently performed in his clown attire and makeup at children's parties, charity fundraisers, as well as other events, and also known as his alter ego, which was Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown. What the freaking hell, that is creepy as shit. I don't like it one bit. Now, the killer clown Gacy sometimes lured his victims with the promise of construction work or some other ruse, and then captured, sexually assaulted, tortured, and eventually strangled most of them with his hands or with a rope. What the hell? I mean, just the sight of this clown doing all these things to you is freaking scary and mind-bending and just weird completely. Now, this is something what he said that freaking creeped me the hell out. During a conversation with detectives while he was under surveillance, Gacy discussed his work as a clown, remarking, "Clowns can get away with murder." Yes, they can. That's creepy as shit. Just watch the movie It. Now, in 1968, Gacy was convicted of sexually assaulting 2 teen boys and given a 10-year prison sentence. That is mad. Only 10 years for sexually assaulting 2 teen boys is disgusting. He was released on parole in the summer of 1970, but was arrested again the following year after another teen accused Gacy of sexual assault. Surprise, surprise. The charges were dropped when the boy didn't appear during the trial, because he was probably freaking traumatized, that's why. Or threatened possibly as well. And, in the middle of the 1970s, 2 more young males accused Gacy of rape, and he would be questioned by the police about the disappearances of others. He also referred to this period of his life as his cruising years, when he committed most of his murders. He even fucking labeled it the cruising years. How sick is this guy? And then on December 11, 1978, 15-year-old Robert Peast went missing. It was reported to police that the boy was last seen by his mother at a drugstore where he had actually been working before he headed out to meet Gacy to discuss a potential construction job. And 10 days later, the police searched Gacy's house in Norwood Park, Illinois, and they uncover evidence of his involvement in numerous crimes, including murder. It was later discovered that Gacy had committed his first known killing in 1972, taking the life of 16-year-old Timothy McCoy after luring the youth to his home. And after a lengthy period of police surveillance and investigation, and of course the discovery of several trenches filled with human remains in the crawl space beneath his house, Gacy eventually confessed to killing about 30 people. Now, we're going to talk about victim number 24. And over the years, there have been lingering concerns that Gacy may have been responsible for the deaths of other people whose bodies have not yet been found. And when police uncovered human remains in Gacy's house in 1978, 8 bodies could not be identified. That's so creepy for the families, man. And then, more recently, Cook County authorities used DNA evidence to identify Gacy's unidentified victims. And in 2017, yes, that's only 4 years ago, one of those men, victim number 24, was identified as 16-year-old Jimmy Byron Harkinson. And in 1976, Harkinson left his home in St. Paul, Minnesota, and traveled to Chicago to begin life in the city. Just go and start afresh, go and start a brand new life with all this excitement, and then this crap happens to you. And on August 5, he called his mother to let her know that he had arrived. However, police believe Gacy killed him shortly thereafter. So in 1979, Harkinson's mother then decided to contact the authorities to find out if her son was one of Gacy's victims. But she didn't have any dental records, and the department lacked sufficient resources to identify him as a victim. Harkinson's mother then died in the early 2000s, but other family members provided DNA samples in 2017. Just imagine that this poor mother died without really knowing what actually happened to her son. I think that is the biggest misjustice for a lot of these families. And then authorities eventually made an immediate match to victim number 24 after using the DNA samples. Guys, John Wayne Gacy, what a piece of work. What a piece of work. At least 33 young males were killed. That's all they know of. I mean, this piece of shit just molested, raped, murdered, strangled, and killed these kids and sometimes young men as well. So clearly there was something to do with his upbringing, but I'm not making any mistakes for him, excuses for him. What I'm saying is, if you look at all these serial killers, there is a common denominator. They never have a really normal, perfect upbringing. So that's why they say, just, treat your kids with respect, or treat humans with respect in general. This guy was a complete piece of shit. I don't know what you guys think about him, but I think we're going to move straight on to his trial and how this piece of shit used the insanity plea as well. So his trial began on February 6, 1980, and with Gacy having confessed to the crimes, the arguments were focused on whether he could be declared insane and thus remitted to a state mental facility. Gacy had told police that the murders had been committed by an alternate personality, while mental health professionals testified for both sides about Gacy's mental health. And after a short jury deliberation, Gacy was ultimately found guilty of committing 33 murders and became known as one of the most ruthless serial killers in US history. He was sentenced to serve 12 death sentences and 21 natural life sentences. He was also imprisoned at the Menard Correctional Center in Illinois for almost a decade and a half, and after appealing the sentence and offering contradictory statements on the murders in interviews. Though he had confessed, Gacy later denied being guilty of the charges and had a 900 telephone number set up with a 12-minute record statement declaring his innocence. As both anti-death penalty forces and those in favor of the execution made their opinions known, Gacy died by lethal injection on May 10, 1994 at the Stateford Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois. While he was imprisoned at the correctional center in Menard, Gacy took up studying the visual arts, especially painting, and his paintings were shown to the public via an exhibition at the Chicago Gallery. And many of his paintings depict Gacy as Pogo the Clown. Freaking hell, this guy doesn't get away from this clown alter ego of his. And in 2017, Malek's Auctions in Shropshire, UK, auctioned off a number of Gacy's artwork as well as the crime scene pictures from Gacy's trial. 3 of the Gacy's paintings, including 2 of the originals, Pogo the Clown and They Call Him Mr. Gacy, sold for £4,000 and £325 respectively. 8 of his other works went unsold. Crazy. I don't know if you've seen this, but in 1992 there was a movie made called To Catch Killer, exploring the efforts to find out what happened to the missing teenage boys who were later discovered to be among Gacy's victims. The movie was actually but starred Brian Dennehy and Michael Riley, as well as Margot Kidder, and they were actually nominated for an Emmy Award for Dennehy's performance. And according to Dennehy, Gacy wrote a letter to him from prison, protesting his portrayal in the film and proclaiming his innocence. Of course he did. What a freaking sick weirdo. Now, Gacy's house that was located at 8213W Summerdale Avenue in Norwood Park, just east of Chicago O'Hara's International Airport, and on several occasions, visitors and family members reported that the house had an unusual stench, which Gacy attributed to mold or rodents. I don't think so. I think it was all the dead freaking bodies buried there. In a simple one-story ranch house in a middle-class neighborhood, Gacy had outfitted his home with a trapdoor leading to a crawl space beneath the house, where he would dispose of many of his victims' bodies. See, premeditation right there. This guy knew what the hell he was doing. He even altered his house just so he could freaking bury people there. And there were others buried in the backyard or just dumped in the nearby Des Plaines River. And in 1978, with Gacy under arrest, the house was dismantled in an effort to find more evidence. The following year, the house and all the structures on the property were demolished, and a new house was eventually built on the property. And according to one worker involved in the demolition of Gacy's house, if the devil's alive, he lived ya. Yeah, that's no crazy lie at all. I'm wondering actually the people that are living in that house now, if they experience any paranormal activity there, because with all those dead bodies, and I'm sure a lot of those people went through traumatic deaths, surely those spirits are left, what's the word I'm looking for? Unrested spirits. So yeah, it would be interesting to find out if any of those people have experienced anything creepy and weird there. So I'd like to start doing podcasts maybe once every 3 weeks or so on actual real life killers like this. So if you're interested in hearing about these, tell me, who would you like to hear about next? There's Otis Toole, there's Aline Warner, so of course Charlize Theron portrayed in the movie Monster. What about Ted Bundy as well? Guys, there are plenty out there. If you would like me to do some podcasts on it, just let me know. But tell me, how did you enjoy today's show? How did you enjoy the story of John Wayne Gacy, the killer freaking clown? Did you enjoy it? Do you also have a fear of clowns? Maybe you got a fear now after hearing the show. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're keeping safe. Please don't forget to click like, subscribe, and share this video. I want to try and grow this channel as much as possible, and I need all the interaction from you folks to help doing that. Anyways, guys, take care and look after yourselves.